Cape Town.
This is Lester Kivet on Cape Talk.
On a quarterly basis, I get a letter, or I think it's an email, from the people who run my retirement annuity. And sometimes I scan it and I look at a date. A date on that quarterly update gives my retirement date. The 2nd of September, 2044 is the day, according to this RA, that I should stop working. But can an employer simply dismiss an employee once they've reached that retirement age? What is the actual rules, regulation? What's the law when it comes to retirement age? Does it come to the company's own retirement policies? It's proving to be quite contentious, because on one hand, we have people who feel that they are still productive workers. We are living longer, more healthier lives beyond the general retirement age of 60, 65. And especially if you still need to earn an income. At the same time, we have a youth unemployment rate and qualified graduates who are waiting in the wings to step into these roles. Joining me now is Advocate Tertius Wessels, Managing Director at Strata-g Labour Solutions. Good morning, Tertius. Really appreciate your time. Firstly, let's set up the legal framework. Is there any law, any regulation on our statute books that says once you've reached a certain age, you must retire?
Good morning, Lester, and good morning to the listeners. Thank you for the opportunity. I think from the onset, what we should note is that there's nothing in law that really says that you must retire and you must stop working upon reaching the age of 60 or 65. However, there is a provision in the Labour Relations Act under Section 187, which specifically states that a dismissal based on age will be automatically unfair, or it could constitute unfair discrimination unless it can be shown that the employee has reached a normal or agreed retirement age for a person employed in that capacity. Now, what this effectively means is that employers or organizations can stipulate either in contracts of employment or in policy that an employee needs to retire upon reaching a certain age.
There seems to be lots of confusion when it comes to people who are reaching retirement age, but also confusion when it comes to legal precedent. There are three separate interpretations of the law. There are three separate judgments that speak to retirement and labor relations. Maybe go through some of them on what all these judgments say and why we need to find congruency between them.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting case that you're referring to, and the three judgments. It's a judgment that was handed down by the Constitutional Court, where even the highest court in our land is divided over an employer's right to terminate employees' employment upon reaching retirement age. And the three judgments, effectively, how the court interprets this. One is to say, you have to apply it on date of retirement. So when an employee reaches that normal or agreed retirement age, their services need to be terminated on that date specifically. Otherwise, to do so at a later stage would be considered unfair. The second interpretation is to say, well, listen, you can either do it on that date or within a reasonable time after that retirement age. And again, what is reasonable? Would it be the end of that month in which the person turns 60 or 65, whatever the retirement age is? And then there's a third interpretation that says you can terminate somebody's services at any point in time after they've reached the retirement age, which effectively is a nice interpretation, and it was an interpretation that the Labour Appeal Court also had, because it effectively caters for those kind of situations where people can work longer, can work past their retirement age, but it still allows the employer some leniency to then effect a termination at any other point in time. Because consistency is ultimately what we seek. We want to be fair to all employees within an organization, and there needs to be certainty for people that as to when am I going to retire, because then I can plan ahead. If I don't have that certainty and I don't know what tomorrow holds, it creates a lot of problems.
So is it all about companies when they take on someone that there is an agreed upon date of termination once reaching a certain age? Or it could be open-ended. Some companies simply need to announce and advertise a policy that says this is what our policy is when you reach a particular age. Either it is that's when you end, or we'll evaluate when you get there.
It's always best for there to be agreement. I say incorporate it into an employment contract. That way when somebody starts, they know exactly from day one what their retirement is. But it doesn't have to be stipulated in the employment contract. It can exist through policy as well. And like you've mentioned earlier on in the show, is that, many people do have some form of pension fund or provident fund, which also then makes provision. But again, that's not something that is common in all workplaces.
But then it becomes the auxiliary bodies, the auxiliary functions that also complicate things. My RA says and gives the date of the 2nd of September 2044, which I then need to retire. I know of people who are nearing a retirement age, but also are still looking at investing. They still maybe want to extend a home loan. The bank, on the other hand, says, well, you're reaching retirement age. We're not going to extend you that privilege because you're close to retirement. Your company may agree, well, you can work beyond that, but when it comes to RAs, policies, even your bank also needing to decide. I also know of cases where SARS has also become involved because people have reached a so-called retirement age. There seems to be, I think we need to find some, as you say, consistency amongst all platforms of our society and economy on when exactly a retirement age is.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate thing. You have so many external third parties that play a role or can be affected by a person reaching their retirement. And whilst we try and find some form of consistency, unless everybody comes together and there's some form of uniformity, which I don't think you'll find, because the interests of each institution is different. We are always going to sit in a situation where retirement is filled with uncertainty, unfortunately.
A question here is, why can politicians work till they are 100 while we have to retire at 60? It's largely because public representatives don't fall under specific labor relations laws, is it, Tertius?
Political parties themselves are governed by different laws, and the provisions of